Many years ago, in the peaceful community of Caldwell, Liberia, there lived a couple who looked perfect on the outside, but were slowly bleeding on the inside. Their names were Mambu Saili and Duwana Saili. When people saw them walking hand in hand to church every Sunday morning, they would say things like, "See those two, God really blessed them." From a distance, they appeared to be a dream couple. But inside that beautiful house with bright blue gates, they lived in silence and fear. Their love had collapsed long ago without making any sound. Duwana was a gentle woman who could make strangers feel safe with only a smile. Before marriage, she was a school teacher who loved children so much that parents trusted her with their babies without question. She had dreams of owning a small learning center one day and shaping young minds. When she first met Mambu, she would talk about it excitedly, thinking he would support her ambition. But after marriage, he convinced her to resign from work, saying that a good wife should stay at home and focus on her family. So, even though it was painful letting go of her passion, she obeyed him because she believed love meant sacrifice and unity meant agreements. For 8 long years, they tried to have children, and every month it failed. Duwana felt like her heart was being peeled open slowly like a knife, especially when her friends got pregnant effortlessly. She had to hide to cry in the bathroom and under the pillows. Worst of all, Mambu's family blamed her constantly. They would tell her to her face that a woman who cannot conceive is a curse to her husband. Sometimes she cried until she could not breathe again and would hold her stomach as if she could squeeze life into it with her hands. However, even though she suffered, she never blamed Mambu and she never complained to anyone because she believed that one day God would give them a miracle and everything would make sense again. What she did not know and what nobody in the world knew was that 2 years into the marriage, Mambu had secretly done a fertility test where the doctor had told him privately that his sperm count was extremely low and almost impossible for conception. He left the hospital shaking with embarrassment, anger and shame because he cared more about his reputation than the truth. So he decided to hide the results. He burned the paper and pretended like nothing happened. But from that day forward, he lived with deep insecurity that turned his heart harder every single day. And then, one fateful day, Duwana found out she was pregnant. That day, she danced around the house like someone who just received the key to heaven. She cooked Mambu's favorite food, pepper soup with fresh fish, and knelt beside him with tears rolling down her face. "Baby, God has done it for us. We are going to have a child." She expected him to lift her up in excitement, or cry with her, or even hold her tightly. But instead, he sat frozen like ice, staring at her with a stiff face, saying only, "Are you sure?" She laughed through her tears because she thought he was joking out of shock. So she hugged him excitedly. "Yes, my love, this is our miracle." He smiled and hugged her too, but deep inside his chest, a dark thought began to grow like fungus. If I am medically incapable, then whose child is this? And from that moment, he stopped looking at her with love and started looking at her with suspicion, watching her every movement, every phone call, every place she went, and every person she talked to. Instead of celebrating her pregnancy, he treated her like a prisoner under investigation. Yet, Duwana never noticed the change because she was too busy talking to her unborn baby every night, rubbing her belly gently and praying with joy. She believed the child was a sign that God had remembered her tears, and she promised in her heart to raise him or her in love and peace. When the baby boy arrived, they named him Sando. Duwana felt her heart explode with happiness. She held him close and whispered again and again, "My miracle, my gifts, my proof that God never forgets." Everyone who came to visit congratulated the couple and said that their marriage was now complete. But late one night, while Duwana slept with baby Sando on her chest, Mambu stood at the bedroom door staring at them with eyes full of poison and pride, whispering to himself, "If this child is not mine, I will destroy everything." And that was the night he decided to conduct a DNA test. The day the DNA envelope arrived looked ordinary on the outside, but inside the Saley household, something dark was already waiting to swallow the light. Mambu returned home earlier than usual and walked into the living room with a tight face that even the walls felt the tension. He held a brown sealed envelope in his hand and stood over Duwana quietly while she sat on the sofa rocking baby Sando against her chest. She looked up at him smiling because she believed her husband was about to share good news with her. "You came home early today, my love. Is everything all right?" Mambu said nothing. He just sat down slowly and looked at her for a long time. Too long. The kind of stare that makes you feel nervous without knowing why. Then he placed the envelope on the table and pushed it gently towards her. "I had to run a DNA and the results came in today. I did not want to open it alone. We should open it together." Her heart stopped for a second. Well, not from fear, but from excitement, because she believed she had no skeleton in her cupboard. "Of course, let us open it. I already know the truth." She reached forward, but he touched her hand and shook his head slowly. "Let me read it first." And she obeyed because she trusted him more than she trusted herself. He opened the envelope carefully and pulled out the folded paper. But when his eyes reached the printed line, he closed them tightly and inhaled sharply like someone receiving a news of death. He dropped the paper on the table dramatically and covered his face with both hands shaking. "I knew it, Duwana. How could you do this to me?" Duwana's body froze. Everything turned blurry at first, as if someone poured powder into her eyes. She grabbed the paper with trembling hands and stared at the words printed in black letters. "Probability of paternity, 0%. Her whole body went cold instantly. She felt dizzy. She felt the room spinning. She felt her throat closing. She whispered with shaking lips, No, this cannot be true. I never cheated. I never touched another man." Mambo slammed his fist on the table so hard that baby Sando woke up crying. He pointed at her with tears streaming down his face. "Do not lie to me. You think I am a fool? How did you get pregnant when I know what the doctor told me? Tell me how." She stared at him confused, shocked, terrified, shaking her head violently and weeping uncontrollably. "What doctor? What are you talking about? I never cheated, Mambu. I swear on my life. I swear on my mother's grave. I swear before God, I did nothing wrong." And then he delivered the poison slowly and smoothly, like a knife sliding into soft flesh, without a sound. "Do you remember that night you came home crying from your cousin's house? You were drunk and shaking, and you fell asleep on the floor. You do not remember anything that happened that night, do you?" Duwana gasped because she remembered that night, the night she was overwhelmed with pain over her infertility, and her cousins begged her to drink palm wine just to relax. She got drunk and cried herself into deep sleep. She remembered nothing after laying her head down. But the moment he mentioned it, a dark door opened inside her mind and fear entered through it like fast wind. Her voice broke into trembling pieces. Are you saying something happened to me? Are you saying someone touched me?" He looked away slowly. I tried to protect you, but I have been living with this pain alone, pretending everything is okay. I could not tell you because I did not want to break you. And right there, her mind shattered completely because doubt is a more deadly weapon than accusation. She hugged baby Sando tightly against her chest and slid down to the floor, crying from her lungs, crying from her bone marrow, crying from somewhere only grief knows. She beat her chest with her fist and screamed, "God, what did I do to deserve this? I never cheated. I know I never cheated." But Mambo knelt beside her and swallowed hard. "It is okay. We do not need to tell anyone. Let us keep this between us. Nobody will believe you anyway. I will not throw you out. I will stay with you for the sake of the boy, but I will never see you the same again." Now, that sentence became the prison door that locked her soul. From that night onward, Mambo never shouted at her again. He never insulted her openly or argued with her. He simply controlled her silently. He reminded her every day with gentle cruelty, "I forgave you. You owe me everything. You owe me your life." He isolated her from her friends, telling her, "Be careful, your friends talk too much. You don't want them to know how unfaithful you were." He refused to even let her visit her family, saying, "If they find out, they will judge you." He also stopped her from smiling, from thinking, from breathing freely, and slowly, very slowly, she started doubting herself and believing him. She started asking herself, what if something really happened that night and I don't remember? She started seeing herself as unworthy and started shrinking into silence. Her voice disappeared first, then her laughter followed, then her confidence, until her identity vanished. The woman who once walked with joy now walked like someone carrying rocks on her back. The woman who once believed she was loved now believed she was a mistake. The woman who once had dreams now counted her mere survival as victory. For years, Duana lived in the silent torture of her sin, even though the world outside continued to admire their family, calling them blessed because they always looked composed when they stepped out together. Only the walls of their home knew the truth. Baby Sando grew tall, handsome, and intelligent. He loved science, took interest in medical books, and always asked questions that made teachers smile proudly. Yet, every time he looked at his mother, he felt something heavy around her spirit, like invisible chains holding her down. One evening after dinner, when Sando was about 12, he sat beside her on the sofa and asked, "Mama, why don't you laugh like other mothers? I always see you smile, but it never reaches your eyes." Duana froze for a moment, trying to hide her tears behind a practiced smile. "I am fine, my son. Life is just heavy sometimes." Sando shook his head like a stubborn little prophet. "Heavy things can be carried by two people, Mama. You don't have to carry it alone." Mambo walked into the living room at that moment and cleared his throat loudly with authority. "Sando, go to your room, it's late." Sando frowned and hugged his mother before standing up. "Good night, Mama. I love you." Duana whispered back, "I love you too, my heart." The moment Sando left, Mambo sat on the chair opposite her and stared at her the way someone stares at something they own, not someone they love. "What were you telling him?" he asked sharply. She swallowed hard. "Nothing harmful." He asked why I don't smile much. Mambo's lips curled slightly. Children ask foolish questions. You should teach him to mind his business. And you too, stop looking so broken all the time. People will begin to suspect something. She lowered her head quickly. "I am trying, Mambo." He leaned closer and threatened. "Remember what I always tell you. You should be grateful I forgave you and kept you here. If I tell the world what you did, they will stone you. They will take Sando away and you will lose everything. So behave and be thankful." She nodded slowly. "Yes, I remember." And every time he said that sentence, she shrank a little more. By now, even the devil would be sitting at a corner and taking notes from Mambu because the man's cruelty was on another level. He never hit her for once, but he almost suffocated her with manipulation. If she suggested a decision, he would laugh and mock. A woman like you should not speak loudly, please. If she managed to smile, he would whisper, "You are alive today because of my mercy, don't forget." If she hugged Sando too tightly, he would say, "Be careful so you don't break him the way you broke our marriage." And Duwana continued to shrink like paper. But she stayed because she believed suffering was her punishment for a sin she unconsciously committed. One afternoon, when Sando was 17, he found his mother sitting alone in the kitchen, staring blankly at the wall, with tears running silently down her cheeks. He rushed to her and held her hands tightly. "Mama, who hurt you? Tell me, please tell me." She shook her head desperately. "Sando, don't ask. Some things are better buried." He squeezed her hands. "I am not a child anymore. I can see everything. Papa treats you like a prisoner. Why do you allow it?" Before she could answer, Mambu entered quietly and leaned against the doorway like the devil. "Because guilt destroys pride, my son. Your mother made a mistake she can never undo, and we all live with the consequences." Sando turned sharply. "What mistake?" Mambu smiled coldly. "Ask your mother." And he walked away. Sando stared at his mother with wide, confused eyes. "Mama, what is he talking about? What mistake?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She cried so hard that her body shook. She put her hand over her mouth like someone trying to stop herself from screaming. Sando knelt beside her. "Mama, please, tell me, what is it?" She shook her head. "One day, you will understand. But not today. Please forgive me." She wrapped her arms around him tightly, holding on to the only reason she had not ended her own life. However, 6 months later, Kama walked into the Saley house without knocking. Mambu collapsed in his office during a board meeting, shaking violently and unable to breathe. He was rushed to the hospital where the doctors delivered the tragic news. Both kidneys had failed. He needed a transplant urgently. The doctor said, "We must test all family members for possible donors." They tested everyone, siblings, cousins, and extended relatives, but no one was a match. Finally, the doctor said, "We still have one option, your son. If he's a match, the surgery can be done." Mambu's eyes widened and his hands shook uncontrollably because he had built his entire life on the claim that Sando was not his son. But what if he never even gave the truth a chance to live? Left with no choice, he replied weakly, "Test him." When the results came in, Duwana and Sando were sitting in the ward watching over Mambu. The doctor glanced between Mambu and Duwana and then said, "We tested your son Sando. His result is here. He is actually a perfect match." The room went frozen. Duwana swallowed hard. Sando's eyes widened and Mambu's entire body trembled as if something exploded inside him. He stuttered, That is not possible. He's not my blood. The DNA test 17 years ago." The doctor cut him off gently. "About that, I reviewed your old hospital records, sir, and I found something strange. The DNA reports that declared 0% paternity does not match any official laboratory formatting or signature logs. There is no original result in the archive, only a printout with no tracking code. It appears that the test was never actually conducted." Duwana blinked repeatedly, unable to breathe properly. Sando leaned forward. "Doctor, wait. Are you saying my father faked the tests?" The doctor looked uncomfortably towards Mambu. "All evidence suggests deliberate tampering. Someone bypassed the real tests." Silence swallowed the room. Duwana's voice was shaking uncontrollably. "Mambu, tell the truth. Did you ever do a real DNA test?" Mambo's lips trembled violently. Tears gathered in his eyes, but he could not speak. Finally, with a broken voice, he answered, "No." The confession hung in the air like smoke from a burning wood. He covered his face with both hands and cried deeply. I was scared. I couldn't face the truth. I knew my results. I knew I was infertile. It was impossible for me to father a child. And I couldn't bring myself to accept the possibility of the child not being mine. I preferred to forge the results and break your spirit with it, rather than to face the shame of not being able to father a child. I couldn't let anyone think I was weak. So I paid the technician to print a negative result. I gave him money. I told him not to bother testing. I lied, and I built everything on the lie. Duana staggered backward until her back hit the wall. Breath left her lungs. Her head shook violently and she slid to the floor slowly, covering her mouth to hold back the scream that was threatening to tear through her. Sando stared at his father with horror and disbelief. You ruined her life. You ruined ours. Because of what? Because of pride? Mambo cried harder, choking between words. I thought if I admitted the truth, people would laugh at me. A man without sperm is not a real man in this world. I was only trying to protect myself. Duana looked at him ridiculously. So you destroyed me instead? For 17 years, you watched me suffocate under the guilt I never deserved. For 17 years, you let me believe I had been violated. For 17 years, you watched me hate myself. She hit her chest with her fist, crying uncontrollably. I begged you for forgiveness. I begged you to talk to me. I begged you to stop tormenting me. Mambo pleaded. Duana, please, I am sorry. I need Sando to help me. I will be a better father from now. Please forgive me. Please ask him to donate. I am dying. She looked at him as if he was a forbidden fruit. If you wanted mercy, you should have sown mercy. If you wanted love, you should have given love. I buried myself alive for 17 years because you locked me in a prison of lies and manipulation. Sando stood beside his mother and held her shoulder protectively. Mama, we don't owe him anything. The doctor spoke again. Mr. Saley, medically, he is your only chance. Without a kidney transplant, you may not survive. Mambo reached out with both hands. Sando, my son, please save me, please. Sando took a step back. You spent my whole life acting like I was not yours. He turned to the doctor. He said I was a mistake. He said I was not part of his family. He said I was a shame. Today, he needs me because his lies caught up with him. Duana stood slowly, wiped her tears, and lifted her chin high for the first time in 17 years. She spoke with a steel-like voice. My son will never risk his life for a man who buried his mother alive. You are not dying because there is no donor. You are dying because the truth has finally come to collect debts. She looked directly into his eyes. I forgive you, but forgiveness does not include rescue. She turned to the doctor. Remove us from his emergency contact list. He is no longer our responsibility. Sando nodded. Goodbye, sir. And without another word, the mother and son walked out of the room together. Behind them, Mambo collapsed into uncontrollable tears. I destroyed my own life. I lost everything. The hospital confrontation was supposed to remain a secret, but what is the sweetness of life without a little drama here and there? Whistleblowers inside the hospital leaked the details about the forged DNA scandal to the authorities because professional rules had been broken and disciplinary investigation was unavoidable. Within 48 hours, a secret internal audit uncovered the truth. Mambu had bribed a laboratory technician 17 years earlier to fabricate a negative paternity result without ever running a real test. The technician confessed tearfully and provided every hidden file. The police opened a case immediately because emotional and psychological abuse that lasted almost 2 decades is not a small matter, and fraud involving medical records is a criminal offense with heavy consequences. A summons was issued for Mambu's statements, but he was still bedridden in severe pain, waiting and hoping that maybe mercy would fall from heaven the way rain falls on dry ground. Meanwhile, at home, Duwana sat by the window holding a cup of warm tea, watching Sando revise his exam notes. She studied his face and saw the fire in his eyes that she never allowed herself to fully see before. He looked up and smiled. "Mama, what are you staring at?" She smiled back. "I am staring at a miracle, the miracle that saved my life." Sando stood, walked to her and wrapped his arms around her tightly. "You are my miracle too, Mama." For the first time in 17 years, Duwana felt her chest open, as if she had been breathing through a small hole and suddenly found fresh air again. The next morning, 2 police officers and a legal investigator entered the hospital ward. One officer spoke up. "Mr. Mambuseli, you are under investigation for medical record fraud, bribery and psychological abuse. You have the right to remain silent." Mambu closed his eyes tightly as tears streamed down his face. "Please, not now. I am dying." The officer's voice remained cold. "Justice does not wait for convenience. You built a cage and locked someone inside it for 17 years. We cannot ignore that." He placed handcuffs on the bed rail and locked Mambu's hand in them since he was too weak to stand. 3 weeks later, the doctor announced that Mambu's condition had worsened rapidly. Every possible medical option had failed, and every donor avenue was exhausted. His body was shutting down slowly like a candle flame running out of wax. He requested to see Duwana urgently. Out of respect, she went with Sando. She stood beside the hospital bed but refused to sit. Mambu looked at them with hollow eyes and trembling lips. "I know I am dying. I know I deserve it. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. And I am sorry, truly sorry." She nodded slowly. "I forgave you already, not for you, but for my own peace." He swallowed painfully. "You were the only person who ever loved me genuinely, and I destroyed that love with my own hands." Silence stretched between them like a long road. He then turned to Sando and said, "My son." Sando's eyes were filled with sadness, but he did not step closer. "I hope you find peace." Unfortunately, those were the last words Mambu heard before he took his final breath later that night, alone, surrounded only by machines and regrets. A year later, Duwana opened a community center for women called the House of Second Chances. It became a safe space for women escaping psychological abuse, manipulation, and narcissists. Slowly, she started doing all she wanted to do, especially since Sando was away at medical school. Hi besties! Thank you for watching the story. This story is a very emotional one for me because it is not just a story. It is the reality of so many people trapped in the claws of narcissists. Emotional abuse might just be the worst form of abuse because it doesn't leave bruises on the skin, but it leaves incurable bruises on the mind. Sometimes what kills is not a slap, but a lie repeated until you stop believing yourself. Now, let the story serve as an eye-opener to this kind of people. They are called broken people. And nothing satisfies a broken person more than breaking someone who stands tall. So, watch out for when love becomes a prison, and never ever give someone the power to rewrite your mind. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What lesson did you learn from the story? Share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!